so
No problem.
started. And we have some absentee within the group, so would you like to just get started and
Oh, sure.
we go
Thank
from there?
you. And
Is
then
that
we
okay,
could
Tom?
excuse ourselves
That's fine.
afterwards,
We'll move them up to. I make a motion to move them in their presentation up to number 2.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, good. Thank you. How did you get?
So the statistics that we passed out, these are all HUD guidelines.
Yes.
So affordable housing starts at 20%. And we have, and Rebecca has probably spoke to you guys about this, a bunch of people that are grandfathered in at the 20% level. Because, and Ken could attest to this, he's been there longer than I'm, going on 14 years. But we have people that used to only pay $80 because they're only getting $700 or $800. But as the years passed, we were not able to meet our day-to-day operations, our day-to-day bills, our insurance, our overhead, and still make any kind of minor repairs or major repairs on that rent roll that we were getting. So we went into something called rent stratification. And it's where we set base rents, and people have to meet at least the 32% income guideline a month, but not go under those base rents that were set by the Board of Commissioners. As far as Section 8 goes, our hopes are that we will be able to accept it, and I've had several meetings with Section 8 already. We have to pass the inspections, and it's not that we're unable to pass, it's just that we're grandfathered in on just a lot of the ADA things that have changed over the years. They change every year. Our statutes change every year. So we have to remain apprised on all the changes in the statutes every year too. So it's a big book if you ever look at the general statutes. And it'll definitely put you to sleep if you read it at night.
Yeah.
So, but affordable housing goes under any one of these percentage. We have people from 20% all the way up to 80%. So we have people that are grandfathered in, and we're only, the state put a cap on it. Each year we can only raise the rent $25. Our lowest paying people that are at $275 now, but they were at $80 14 years ago. So we just upped the ante. And then we have people paying as much as 80%, so that have pensions, are on disability, are on retirement. It could be a couple. We have single bedrooms that are square footage for 2 people, and they go up to paying maybe $1,100, $1,200 a month. So we could meet our day-to-day needs down at the Housing Authority too.
Okay. Now, when you get an open apartment, how do you select people to come in? I understand that they have to meet certain criteria. I'm curious what the criteria is, and if you prefer people from Rocky Hill already?
No. We take anybody from the whole state.
Okay.
We get a brunt of people from Rocky Hill.
Yeah.
But we also get people all over. We get people from out of state. We get people from Georgia and Massachusetts, and we can't put a cap on and restrict it just to Rocky Hill residents.
So how do you?
It's called the Tenant Selection Plan. Do you guys know that we have a website? And we posted a lot of great literature on there about how you get in and things like that, and what the criteria is. But basically, we open and let me give you the website. It's www.rhctha, like Housing Authority.org. And you can actually even pull an application off the website, or you can, send it to me right through the website. So it has all the income guidelines, tenant selection plan, where the Board of Commissioners, and the state of Connecticut set some guidelines. They have to pass background checks, criminal checks. We run multiple checks. They have to prove that they're able to pay a certain amount if they're at that 450 base rent guideline, in which the board is looking at maybe even increasing it just to make our day-to-day needs, such as the electric bill and the water bill and the insurance bill.
The out-of-state stuff, I mean, how well is that received by someone that might not be able to get in, that's a Connecticut resident that meets all the criteria? Is there a preference given to in-state, or how do
No.
you explain that to someone that might not be able to get a spot?
Get a spot because
To get an apartment there that meets all the criteria,
If
but,
they-
but there's someone from out of state that meets the criteria. It's not always favoring the in-state person.
No,
No.
it's not. If you're placed on the waiting list, there was a number generated to attach to your name, and we go down the waiting list.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, this is where, when people call, they're like, I put an application in 2 years ago. What's my number? Numbers are arbitrary, and I know you're gonna think like, okay, what did she just said? We get a number attached to us. That's where the lottery system comes in. Say Kenny moves out, and he's at a $650 base rent, which means 32% of it, his income times X amount of money, made it at $650 or over $650. Because we have 70 units, so we have X that are $450, certain amount that are $550, and then $650. I might call the first 25, not the first, but we're at the waiting list, 25 people. A, they may have changed their number and never updated when we purge the list once a year. B, they didn't pass the credit check, background, criminal. The state has some strict guidelines for older adult and disabled, so.
Okay.
And, or C, they may only be able to be making $900 to $1,000 and cannot reach that $650 benchmark that we have set. So that's how we kind of deem it. So if you're from Georgia and you're calling me, and Kenny's asked me, well, I've been living in Rocky Hill my whole life, she got her application in first and she met all the criteria.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that Kenny's not gonna go in, he just has to wait a few more months, or, we have a full house all the time.
Right.
Our oldest tenant resident just turned 99 years old, she's been there from day one.
Cool.
So, when they move in, they do not move out willingly anyways.
When you look at someone's income, do you have a percentage calculation that you use in order to determine if they can afford the rent?
32% a month.
32.
Yes,
Okay.
so if you're making 1,600 times 32, we have a medical spend down that the state allows us to do. They're allowed to, we're allowed to take money off their gross income and calculate it towards the rent. So say the rent was gonna be $650, but you spent $10,000 out of pocket, dentures, eyeglasses, co-pays, surgeries, things like that. We're able to take that off of the gross and
Okay.
decrease it. So, say your rent was $700 at a $650, it might go down to $650. And it's standard, we're overseen by Connecticut Housing Finance Authority and Department of Housing. So every housing authority, whether you're Section 8 or with us, just affordable, where we don't get any funding from the state, the feds, the town, unless it's in grant form, uses the same calculation sheet. Some of them are still at 30%. Those housing authorities that go by 30% of your income are the ones that get the federal funds. They could afford it. Unfortunately, because we're at that baseline where we're not generating a ton of money each month, we had to increase it to 32%.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is a bit off subject now, and probably best addressed again. If we pursue this property and we're able to wave the magic wand and have it developed, is that something that your organization would want to run?
Well, are you talking about additional housing or the
Additional.
present housing?
Additional housing.
We've been
this
looking,
week.
I gotta tell you, I've been looking for funds for the last 10 years.
Mhm.
There's no state money that I've been told out there right now to build additional housing. There's money out there for rehab, is what we're getting.
Right.
Right now. I firmly believe that there's additional housing needed to be built for the elderly, seniors, and so forth that are strapped right now with cost of living and
Right.
so forth. I've been begging for money for 10 years. We've been looking at the Veterans Home and Hospital has those facilities up there. And they just got $5 million.
Right.
That $5 million is not gonna do anything.
yeah.
We've been walking through that complex, and it's all, needs to be totally
Yeah,
gutted
revamped.
and redid. $5 million is not gonna get you anyplace.
Right.
When we built Willow Road, it was $500 or $700,000. That was 40 odd years ago. When we built School Street, it was $2 million. That was 30 odd years ago. Right now, if we look at building additional housing, it all depends how many units they'll allow. We'll look for 30 to 40. I estimate it's gonna be close to $5, maybe $10 million. Now, I know there's been discussion here about putting second floors on Willow Road complex. That building was not built construction-wise for second floors. If second floors are, ever happen, which I don't think it's gonna happen, it's gonna cost close to $500 to $1 million for elevators. That's
Per
8
building.
buildings. That's gonna be
Understood.
$8 million. Say if they're $1 million each, $8 million each just for elevators.
Right. And then the upkeep kicks up
Right.
too.
You're
And you
absolutely
have
right.
to put in the elevators. I mean, you can't have elderly people walking upstairs and falling and what have you. So, the best bet is to have additional land to build first floor units for the individuals. Kelsey Row, I see, is putting in elevators
Right.
and so forth. Those elevators not cheap.
No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I don't wanna throw a wrench in everybody's plans either. The word environmental is a nightmare with the state of Connecticut.
In what way?
In what way? They have changed the guidelines. I don't even know, did they do it many years ago? I don't even think the state of Connecticut had any guidelines for environmental testing. It is mandatory by the state of Connecticut to do something called a phase one, and if certain things don't come out at number-wise,
Right.
it goes into a phase two. And they check for,
Mm-hmm.
all the, the paint, the lead paint, they do radon testing. And it is mandatory every time we do a grant. So even before you got to the developer stage, you would have to hire an environmental, agency like we have. We're using one right now. We've used them in the past. We've done 3 of these grants so far. Like I started to tell you guys, 2 million here, 2 million here. Now we're back to 5 million here. It doesn't really go far. And I'll give you a quick example. All the grants that you apply for, you have to put your own money up for certain things. Environmental testing is one of them. Architectural specifications is another one. And then it's good to go out for an RFP or RFQ for a consultant who can kind of do a brunt of some of the paperwork because it's insurmountable. It's thousands and thousands of pages and they get redundant. But anyways, we've done phase one at Willow Road a couple times. And then all of a sudden they came up to us about 6 to 8 months ago. Well, you need to do a phase two. So I think we already put out $28,000 out of pocket for the environmental to do all the testing. And now we have to put out another 10 or 15. Do you know why? Our Willow Road borders Main Street. I don't know if you guys know where both of our complexes are. So it's Main, is it? Yeah, Main Street. Yeah, well, it goes to Solstein this way. It's kind of like you're going to Cromwell. That's all our trees and you know, our yard. That's where we're looking at possible building some
Right.
new ones, but that has to go into geotechnical surveys and everything. Somebody from across the street keeps putting their grass clippings on our property. And we have no dumping signs, but we have cameras, surveillance equipment throughout both of the properties, but not that far because it's just trees. $100,000 to abate. Do you know why? Because when they tested the soil, it had pesticide from them putting some chemical on their, and again, it's not worst case scenario. I know a lot of people that go through that. I just want you to keep in mind, look for grants that have environmental attached to it too, that would feed the cost. And that's what they said, for us to abate, and it was only a patch about this big, about $100,000. They have to drill under, I don't know what they do, but the guidelines are very stringent in the state of Connecticut. And they do the lead paint, they do the asbestos, if things were built before, you know, a certain amount of time, you know, there's
Right.
they found in our windows, just a little bit of caulk,
Mhm.
there was, I think it was lead or asbestos. I mean, we're okay because we don't have to abate any of that, because we can pull the window out and put it right back. We're renovating all the flooring, so we're just gonna put it on top. We're gonna put it on top of the
And seal
existing,
it.
so we don't rip it out.
Section 8 would require some of that stuff to be done,
Yes,
anyway.
not ripping out and
Not
things
ripping
like
out,
that.
but there are
Yeah.
some of the things you listed.
Right.
And they did tell us, when I spoke to Section 8, you know how I told you some of our grandfathered people are paying $275? And in Rocky Hill, Section 8 will pay on Willow Road for heat and hot water included, $1,970 they would give for one apartment to us.
For one bedroom.
One bedroom. Studio is like $1,800.
Mm-hmm.
And so the person living there would only have to pay their $200 or $275, and the state would give us checks.
Right.
And the sustainability would just be miraculous. I might get a secretary, you guys.
So that's good to know, like the environmental cost will kick in before,
Yeah.
even though we don't have to worry about lead and asbestos, new construction, so those.
But we
And
never know what we have to worry about.
New
till we get to that.
construction is more stringent than renovations too. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I
Sure.
don't mean to be a downer, you know, in this, I just, a realist. And I've
Right.
learned a lot in my 14 years in the housing business, and, each year they get higher, and they up the ante a
Sure.
little bit too.
Just think about Kelsey Road, how long that's been going on for years, all that abatement, and there's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It was $500,000 worth of, no, it was $1 million.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
$1 million
That seems
plus
cheap.
the abatement, that
Yeah.
land there.
Wasn't
Yeah.
it an auto body shop in that land years ago?
Are you kidding me, really?
Really, yeah.
And it seems low to me, I'm not, you know what I mean? I mean, they leveled all the buildings, but still, all the chemicals, they're real big
I
on,
didn't know
on
about that.
soil testing.
Yes.
And geotech testing and geo surveys. And I'm not sure if Kim told you or you guys are privy to that, but State Rep Carey got us a small grant, $55,000, from Department of Housing we're working on right now.
Right.
It's not gonna cover much, it's gonna cover architectural, specifications to see how many they could fit, and, you know, we're looking at maybe 450, 500 square feet, kinda like what we have now.
Right.
Maybe appliances included, garden style, because most of the older adult and disabled thrive better with just walking in their front door. They can't do stairs, they can't lift their legs over the bathtub, so there's so many different things to think about. A geotechnical survey, we just got a couple estimates, one was like 13,000 just to survey and see if there's, you know, rock and water. We have to do an A2 survey, which is part of,
Right.
state of the Connecticut guidelines, so it's just so many entities wrapped in one, so you're like, wow, the housing authority's getting 5 million by the time, at the end of the day, there's about this much. But it's gonna be well worth it, we're very excited. the Board of Commissioners, myself, have been working hard on this for a couple of years, trying to land these,
I promise you, when we get to the point where we're gonna start looking for grants, you're gonna get a phone call from us.
Well, you know, it's interesting, if the town puts up the money, you can restrict the apartments to town residents only.
You
Once
could.
you accept
Okay.
state money or
State.
federal money, it has to be opened up to everybody.
Mhm.
Right,
Which we need all the money we
They
can get
say because of the
states to do.
discrimination issues and
yeah, and
things
Ken,
like
that's
that.
any state or any federal.
Yes.
Correct.
You're
Right.
absolutely right. And it's funny because there's a lot of different, like if we were federally funded, all Section 8 with no state affiliation, they have different guidelines. They allow 0 smoking anywhere in the property. Where we thought it would be best because some of them were trying to sneak and smoke in the apartments, causing thousands upon thousands of dollars of damage, you guys, because it gets into the sheetrock and everything. We have to rip up it's just terrible. We got AARP grants,
Are you able to kick
$5,000.
out people who do that?
I'm sorry?
Are you able to kick out people who do that?
Not anymore. We just got back. I was at a Conero conference, it's called. I'm soon to join the board there. I'll be a board of commissioner for my first stint over there. But, it's a big housing conference with Department of Housing and CHAFA and things like that. Since, COVID hit and a lot of the guidelines, they were kind of lax. They wouldn't let
Right.
us, evict people. They wouldn't let us do a lot. We had a lot of people that just said, I don't feel like paying you rent anymore. And I had to apply for something called Unite CT. Tons and tons of paperwork for each person, and then they would give them $2,000-3,000 of back rent. You know,
Right.
we can't, the only evictions that we talked to the attorney about at the conference are non-payment, but it has to be an insurmountable amount. We have people right now that have caused thousands and thousands of dollars of damage, and the attorney said, you're gonna waste your money because the judge says to you, there's nowhere for them to go. We're leaving them with you. And the only ones that we can get rid of are the ones that are maybe owe us $10,000-15,000 or that are threatening the welfare being of the other residents. There's certain statutes that if they violate, they're out. But we had somebody that we were trying, that needed to leave, and we could not do anything for 3 years until.
Yeah, I understand.
So evictions are few and far in between. We've done them, and unfortunately, we don't like doing that. But if somebody's renting and not paying their bills, then that trickles over to us, and we, it affects our bill paying for that one.
Right. During COVID, you couldn't evict them.
No,
They could just not pay, and now.
and they did not pay.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Some of them.
Tough to be a landlord then.
It's very difficult. It's a precarious situation that we're in with
Right.
each. And that's why they are stringent in the guidelines for the background checks, criminal, sex offender registry,
Right.
things like that.
Now, does anybody else have any questions?
No.
Then I want to ask you specifically, if I was a smart guy, what questions would I be asking you that I haven't asked you? Because this is really an opening for us.
This is very enlightening.
Is
They're-
that,
they're-
No, definitely.
It's a fight for money for additional affordable housing.
Yeah.
I've been told that they're gonna put money in the budget, and every time we look, there's no money in the budget. The key to this whole project is if you have the land, that's a good percentage to then go after the additional funding for building the housing.
Right.
That's what happened on Willow Road, and that's what happened on School Street. The town deeded the land over to the housing authority.
Mhm.
And so once we had the land, then we went chasing after the money. The problem is, there's no money.
Which
They're
is-
doing money for rehab.
See, that's where I think, there's a disconnect, right? Like, this is a big thing about affordable housing everybody's like, especially being an election, everybody, like federal level,
It's the
state.
new laws.
Oh,
we
yeah.
have to have
Right,
it.
everybody's
Plus,
talking
it's-
about
it's
affordable housing,
mandatory.
but
Yes.
there's no, like, provisions, like, to enable towns, states to, kind of fast track those projects. Like, if you're handicapped for money, how are towns going to, like, move forward with these affordable
Well,
housing?
you can look for developers out there to come in and do the affordable housing. The problem we have seen around the country is once they come in, build affordable housing, they hold on to it for 5 years, 10 years, and then they abandon it or try to sell it.
Right.
And then it becomes a problem.
But we-
And sometimes the housing authorities take over. I was talking to former executive director at the conference couple weeks ago, and they bought some old hotels. And they were abandoned hotels. They took the hotel, they got them for, I forgot, it was very cheap. They took the hotel, rehabbed it, and now are utilizing it for affordable housing. So those are possibilities of looking around what's available now instead of new building is taking, cause you can get more rehab money right now than you can for new building construction. And taking an old hotel and turning it again into affordable housing complex.
It's a good idea.
And when you mention the developers, Chaffa does sponsor, it's called the LITCH program, Low Income Tax Credit for Developers. But if you go that route, you're gonna carry a mortgage until you're 150, you know what I mean?
Right.
Because there's always gonna be a mortgage on the property. So they do have that as an availability, and that's part of the consolidated application that we applied for. We applied for renovation, but they also have the tax credit portion of that application. And that by far was the most challenging grant I've done in my career. And I used to do grants prior to this, and
Right.
suicide and homicide, because that was my field, but it's challenging, but there is money, but it's only to the low income tax credit for the developers, so. I know it feels, it's frustrating, isn't it? They want,
Yeah, because, see, I'm an accountant by profession, right? So I'm looking at numbers. I mean, yes, land has value, but is it substantial enough to incentivize the developer to build affordable housing? Because now they're constrained by the income limits, the rents that they can charge, stuff like that. And is the difference between what they can charge as affordable housing versus open market enough to compensate them, towards the
there's
cost
a-
of
there's
land
a-
that they might not have to pay?
Well, there's an advantage because what happens is they get vouchers. Sometimes people don't pay their rent. When they get the vouchers, the voucher automatically comes from the state, so they automatically will get the money, and then the tenant pays, I
The
forgot what
portion,
it was,
yeah.
very percentage.
But that's Section 8,
2, 3,
right?
Right.
that's section 8.
Right, but if you don't qualify under the definition of Section 8, now you basically just have affordable housing, somebody doesn't pay,
Right.
but you're kind of, to me, the cost of land over time versus lost revenue has to,
That's all.
Right.
yes, otherwise, if I'm gonna lose that value of rent within 10 years of subsidizing the rent,
Well, but.
developer is like, is it really worth it for me to do this?
Yeah.
Well, if you take, if you look at it at a 10-year plan, after the 10 years, they get their money back and they sell off the property. And that's usually what we've seen happen with some of the, developers, and then they move on and go on to other developments along the way.
And you did mention to build small houses possibly in that
Yes.
piece of land. Yeah, you have to, you have to get into the contract or lease or ownership. You have to put X amount of years into that property before you could even, think
Sure.
about leaving.
We have to, of course, be very open-minded as to what can go on there, depending on what contractor's gonna come in and say, all right, I wanna build, this is what I wanna build. And yet, we still have to be respectful of the rest of the neighborhood. We're not gonna go in and put a 5-story building in there. That won't work.
No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Is it gonna be for all ages, am I correct? Just affordable housing, or you haven't even talked about a certain population?
We
or-
haven't talked about a certain population.
So
We all
you're in
have our
the-
own mind. The other thing,
That's
I mean,
fine.
this is our 4th meeting, so, you know.
Well, you know, we toured the Vets
Veterans.
Home facility, and that
Right.
is a structure there. It needs to be gutted and everything has to be rebuilt and so forth. But, I mean, they only, and it's not against the legislators, but they only got $5 million for that.
Right.
And that's, I guess, to get the architects or to get the ball rolling. But it's gonna cost a few, 10, 15, $20 million to
My,
rebuild
my understanding
the
is they're
abatement.
only gonna have 14 to 15 units in
Yeah,
there.
15, I heard,
Yeah.
yeah. But the abatement alone, I mean, we talked about that little piece of grass clippings. Can you imagine, those were built, when, in the early 1900s
Yeah,
or
they were
something? We
built-
were talking when we
Correct.
went up there with State Rep Perry, yeah. The asbestos and the lead, the removal, I mean, we walked through some of the old buildings, you could just feel it, like.
It's really costly to
Make
do.
it
Does that
itchy.
make
Yeah.
sense? It's just itchy and fuzzy. Beautiful place. It
Right.
shouldn't have sat there. It was a shame that it's not utilized for affordable housing or veterans or, you know, and I have to commend all you guys because, this housing is challenging. Because, you know, we're supposed to do this, this, and this, but every time we turn, okay, we're gonna do this, brick wall, money, money, money,
Yeah.
money. So
I
just,
don't, I'm sorry. I personally don't believe we're gonna get very far if we try to do this on our own. This board is gonna get nowhere if all we do is sit around the table and, you know, try to figure things out. That's why we're calling you in.
Oh,
and-
you know,
And everybody who comes in, Ken, we're
let me tell you.
asking for help.
When I've been on the chairman of the Housing Authority for 47 years.
Right.
When Richie came involved was when they were building Willow Road, and then the chairman was Marty Stillman at the time, asked me to assist because I had the background in construction management. And that's how I got involved in this whole Housing Authority project. But they went after the money. I mean, the Board of Commissioners, there's 5 commissioners, and we went after the money. We went after the money for the School Street project with the state, and we got the additional 30 units there. So saying, you gotta push. You gotta push for what you want. And if you don't push for what you want, you're never gonna get it. I mean, Susan and the Board of Commissioners worked their butts off to get these grants, and so forth. If we didn't, then we were stuck, you know, not rehabbing these facilities. You know, those who know me know that I can be a real pain to get something done and get it done back. Hey, I was on the police department. I started a crime prevention program and the drug education program before the DARE program was ever talked about.
Right.
So it's you got to push to get what you want, and if you don't push to get what you want, you're never going to get it. And that's how we got 70 units instead of 40 units. So you got to just keep on it and you know, push to get what you want.
Yeah, it's a
I'm
long
gonna
haul.
give you a little bit of advice, you're gonna laugh about this.
Okay.
Do not mention the word CDBG to Ray Carpentino. He hid from me for 2 years. I
Really?
said, we gotta do another one, we gotta do another one. It is an insurmountable amount of paperwork. But it doesn't mean, you know, you have people out there that have done it already. Now we could do it in our sleep. I've done it 3 times. We've done it,
Right.
you know, we're on our 3rd stint. But it could be daunting for some people. And I'm only saying that in a joking manner.
We
What
understand.
is
Yeah.
that?
It's called Community Development Block Grant, also known as Small Cities. and it's federally funded, then it trickles down to DOH, Department of Housing, and then we needed the town to sponsor us. And that's when I chased Ray for 2 years. He kept hiding from me until I caught him at, we were hosting a Chamber of Commerce meeting at the Housing Authority, and he couldn't run. Or he could run, but he couldn't hide from me. And so,
Okay. I don't wanna derail the topic, but I just have to ask a question.
Yeah.
When school was built over there,
Yeah.
were any, I mean, cause that impacted the whole community there, were any concessions made or anything done at that point?
for the Housing Authority,
Yeah.
we had a lot,
Just
you know,
because of the proximity and.
well, it poses its challenges,
Yeah,
and
sure.
we had asked that the normal traffic does not go
Yeah.
up School Street, because it has impeded
Right,
the
so you
fire
couldn't
department
get
and
in.
the ambulance from getting to my people.
Yeah.
And then you have all the buses here, and moms and dads
Yeah.
parked, you can't even fit a piece of paper in between the, you know, it is, and in the original plans, it was supposed to be on the other side, was it Forest Street, they were supposed to put an entrance, be able to come in
Right.
on that side, and I don't know what happened to it, I was so shocked when it was built. Because it's still, I mean, my maintenance person cannot even get up to School Street until all the buses and the moms and dads vacate. It's very challenging
Yeah.
for us.
Fortunately, it's 20 minutes, twice a day.
You're absolutely right. It is, so, you know, it is challenging.
Well, we asked for the old Mosher School for additional elderly
Housing,
housing.
before they
And
built the new school.
we almost got, because they could have built the school further down
Right.
where the,
Fields
and
are.
Where the fields,
I
yeah.
can't, you know, it never came past.
Yeah.
Never hurt to ask.
No,
So
but
you
they
did.
had
That's why
some
we asked,
funding.
we
Keep
asked
pushing, yeah.
for it,
Yeah.
right.
They had some funding through Community Development Block Grant, it's not only for housing. I urge you guys to look up that, that's a federal. And also go on the CHAFA, Connecticut Housing Finance Authority website.
Right.
And look up the different, funds that they have in grants and things like that. Those are two great places to start, especially in affordable housing.
But you know, there's still a lot of land, the Straska land, going further down
Mhm.
there. I mean, the front part's got the new barn and well, I guess they're using it for the farmers and so forth.
Right.
But there's
In
still
front.
available land there.
I
Um,
think if we tried to approach that land at this time,
Yeah.
it wouldn't work. But,
It, I mean, it's vacant land.
Sure.
And this is, I mean, you're using it for affordable housing or elderly housing or senior housing or what have you. The land is there.
yeah.
And you have the town of Rocky Hill behind you.
Yeah.
We have gone to, we've gone to the town council asking for money and sponsorship and things
Sure.
like that. And it's great, they can put you, you know, see if you can get a place right in the budget. You know what I mean? I mean, it doesn't hurt, even if you can get some environmental or, you know, 50 grand to hire an architect to do some specifications once you do secure the land, you know.
Yep.
But you always have us to
Where are
throw
we?
things
We
out
have
on,
4% or 5% now of affordable housing?
We were at
Mhm.
5.68.
Okay, so a little under,
Yeah, it sounds
well,
right.
which is good, because we were.
We're a long way away from 10%.
Oh, yeah, we're
It's not gonna happen in my term.
Well, you know, it's interesting, the state comes up with this 10% without realizing what it's gonna cost towns I mean, your cities could do, but although their percentages are higher numbers,
Yeah.
they come up with this percentage, but then it's gonna take forever to get you to that 10%.
It's not gonna happen.
No,
From
that
what
was
I-
their answer,
Yeah,
too, for
because-
because of the homelessness situation and people having nowhere to go. Well, let's mandate the towns to 10% of the affordable housing.
Yeah, but
Right.
there's no like supporting.
No, they didn't have, just like when they set up our housing authorities, they did not, they said, this is how they set them up, okay? We're, a political subdivision of the state, but we're our own entity,
Right.
okay? The state oversees us where we have to get audits yearly or every 2 years. Accounting, I have to quarterly reports, budget reports. I mean, it's just as much as a grant as what I have to submit to the state of Connecticut every year. But then they said, and then you have to have low-income housing or affordable housing for the older adult and disabled population. And that was it. They set us free. They didn't factor in, oh my goodness, your electric bill for 2 complexes is gonna be $10,000 a month.
Sure.
And your property insurance is gonna be $60,000 a year. You know what I mean? And now our buildings have increased in value, so our insurance went even higher, and you know, we have had no claims in multiple years. But again, because the buildings are worth more, the insurance should go up.
Sure.
So there was, it's a domino effect, you
Yeah.
guys.
I'm not gonna surprise you when I say that that's the way the state does it. It's just, that's it, they've always done it that way.
But we've been we've
Yeah.
maintained sustainability since 1977, and we're not going anywhere anytime soon. We're just it's gonna look like the Taj Mahal down there, you guys. And I'm like, if we ever get started.
Yeah.
We're waiting on the contract so we can go out for a general contractor. And we're gonna bid it out in 2 phases. CDBG money, the Community Development Block Grant, small city, and then the consolidated application. Hopefully 1 developer. So they do the interior, then the exteriors. So stay tuned.
I appreciate you guys.
Thank
being
you
here.
guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Here's my
nice.
card. Please feel free to reach out, text, call, anytime, okay?
I appreciate it, and you're welcome to stay for the
Except
rest
not
of the
at 2
meeting.
in the morning, because all my residents, that's what time they
They-
either
they
set the
wake up.
alarms off, pull the medical alarms, or call me. Thank you.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank
very
you so
much.
much for
I'm
coming
gonna
down.
leave this
That was
here, I
very
don't know if you need
educational,
any.
yeah.
Oh, good, I hope
Yeah.
we didn't overwhelm you
Ken,
guys.
good seeing you.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
It was very nice to meet you.
Likewise.
Feel free to reach
We
out
will.
at any time.
You will
Nice
hear
to
from
meet
us
you.
for sure.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, we've pumped up. So 2 is 3.
Minutes and actions, everybody got the minutes, do we need to ratify those, or?
Yes.
Oh, you didn't get one? Okay.
No, I got one, I said they were fine,
Yeah.
yeah.
What, did I hear you make a motion to accept them?
Yes, except,
I'll second.
all seconds.
All in agreement?
Okay, we're in agreement.
All right. So we have number 4.
And then we had, number 4, we moved up already.
Yeah, thank you. Alright, so number 5, Charles is absent,
Yes.
Alan's absent, Rebecca's absent. Can you are up?
I'm up into
Yes.
that list already. So, I have talked before about reaching out to some towns, communities, getting some information, which I've already shared. I've gotten contacted by a few of them, you know, how you doing, do you need more information? Like, I think maybe I misled people that were further along than we are. You know, I'm more
Right.
like trying to pick out information where people, you know, people wanna help you, you know, so they're, you know, let's talk more, and I just haven't been able to have any further conversations on that.
So I have one question, so the folks that you spoke to, right?
Mhm.
And maybe this could be a follow-up for next.
Okay.
Could we ask them like, hey, how did you get started, right? Like, did they apply for any grants? Where did they get the seed money?
Right.
You know, that's kind of maybe will give us an idea of maybe, you know, we can replicate some of the things
Right.
that they did successfully and maybe avoid some of the pitfalls, right? I know you had sent that email, I think it was Town of Salisbury, the video that.
Yeah, there were, oh yeah.
Right,
That, and they did that Oxborough loss or something like that.
Right, right.
There were a couple of towns.
So, since they've kind of, you know, done that, like, they could kind of give us a little
Yeah,
pathway of like, hey, this is how we can approach, and then maybe if needed, right, we can, whoever we can, we can get on a call with them, just to understand, like, hey, how did you start, right, where did you apply for the grants, how did you make this work? And that will give give us some ideas as well
Yeah.
on how we can move forward.
I will look at my notes I took from those conversations and see what else I could get from that and then talk to the people.
Yes.
I know a lot of what I started to talk to them about was, there are all these little avenues to get funding, and before you can even pursue that, it's kind of like the chicken before the egg. It seems like we need the money and then we can build, but they need to have like the infrastructure in place, like the land and the town commitment and all
Yes.
that. And you need to have that buy-in before you can approach and put in applications for money from all these. So that's kind of like the chicken before the egg thing. So, and like that Oxborough or whatever it was that I had sent, they had that whole community, they had all that area, so that was like, they were able to start at a higher, further along. But I'll go back and take a look at my notes on that and see what we can do.
So that's gonna be great.
And I have one more thing. While I'm at it. So Kim had sent this to me. I don't know if it went to everyone, the Partnership for Strong Communities, because of some of the questions. This was sent out in an email exchange, like based on some of the work I was doing. And it's basically has a lot of links in it. But the gist of it is there's a tool for affordable housing development resources. I don't have details on that. There's a whole bunch of links, and they are having a conference in the fall. I think it's 2 days. It's like really cheap. It's like, I don't know, $40 a day or something like that. I'd like to go. I mean, my time and all. But I'd like to go, so I want to look at the links, not just the verbiage, and talk to her about that. But there's definitely stuff from reading this, and I'll send it to you.
Yeah, if you can just
Yeah,
forward those emails
yeah.
to us.
That would be good.
Yeah, I don't know how she got this. Yeah. And it was published, it looks like July 29th.
Pretty recent.
Yeah, okay. So do I need to, organizationally, can I send it to all of you, or I need to send it
Send it to Kim.
and ask her to forward it to everybody?
Right.
Okay. Yeah. But, so,
Thank you.
yeah, I'm glad you sent this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got a whole bunch of links.
Thank you, Jim.
Yep.
Alright, so next up, Tom.
Okay, I'd like you to take a look at these. I went to the town assessor, and
What are we looking at, I'm sorry?
on these prints that you have. I went to the town assessor, and I got the prints and the property cards for all the significant open property in Rocky Hill.
There was a lot here. I was surprised.
And there's going to be more. But where I started was on this particular print. Some of the print lines coming down. And that's
Yeah.
the piece of the highway where they originally were going to have an off-ramp that comes out to Maple Street. And in this section, right here, it's ballparking 4.5 acres.
Is
It's a lot of space.
526?
Yes, 526. 527 is the rest of the property, so it is separate. But 526 is what I'm kind of aiming at, because 4.5 acres, 4+ acres is enough for us to really do something constructive. It's buildable, which means that it's flat, level, there's no swamps on there, there's no power lines going through it. And if you take the time and drive down either of the streets bordering it, you can get a good view of the property. You don't even have
What's
to get out and
the
walk
those
it.
actually? You know?
2 streets, one of them is Sandy Drive, right here, and the other one is Crystal Drive.
I see those. I notice.
Yep. You'll need to see a
CR
piece of it.
is, okay. Hold on.
Right there.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, I'll definitely drive by.
Take a look at it, and if you agree, then what I just take and see if you agree that we should keep pursuing this, because I don't want to put any more time in something that we're not in favor of. And I think it isn't one person's opinion, it should be the board.
Good.
I think, how can we not do this? How can we not pursue it? I never knew this existed until you
We
dug it
drive
up.
by it all day long,
Ah.
it's all woods and it's fenced in. If we agree, then the next step I propose would be to ask Ray Carpentino, to the town
Planners? Is that who it is?
manager,
Manager?
yep, to send a letter to the state saying we're interested in it. The other thing that I'll pursue at that point is how much, now, when he sends a letter to the state, they'll have it assessed again. And they'll come back with a number. And it could be 0 or it could be 5 million, I have no idea. But whatever they come back with, that's something that we can then start looking for grants for. And we'll have some real numbers. The last time they came back, which was a number of years ago, like 4 years ago, so it wasn't that old, it was $274,000 they wanted. And what I want to do
For the whole 4.5 acres?
for 4.5 acres, and I didn't see the document, so I don't know where they broke it off. But at that point, then at least we'll know what we're looking at.
Right. Now, one of the things Ken mentioned was that Housing Authority kind of has first right of refusal on
State
any-
Housing Authority.
State Housing Authority.
Right.
Okay.
Right now, that's the ownership of that is the
This is DOT, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So before they sell it to us, they gotta go to State Housing Authority saying Rocky Hill wants to buy it. Do
They
you
could
have-
just transfer it to the housing authority. Ideally, we end up with a 0 cost on that.
Right. But that's what I'm kind
Yeah.
of trying to get to.
I'm sorry.
No, but that's exactly what I was trying to get to, that if that could be a possibility.
It is a possibility.
Okay.
Will it be a reality? I don't know. This is my first shot at this too.
Yeah.
I think it's worth pursuing, as you have them. I mean, it's 4.5 acres, that's a lot.
That is a lot.
That's a lot. You could put several houses on that, or apartment buildings, or
Sure.
whatever.
We'll see. You know, my plan, long-term plan, is that once we acquire the property, or in the process of acquiring it, then we can go to the builders like Kelson Row, Belden, and I'm thinking of them because I can see the work they do, the quality, and they're not selling it. They keep it in-house. Okay, that's important because even what Ken said. They'll have people to maintain it right here in town. See if they're interested. They could come in and they could put in something appropriate for the neighborhood and have it all affordable housing. What would make it economically feasible for them, I think, is that the town doesn't have to sell them the property. We can lease it to them in a long-term 99-year lease for a small amount of money so that the town can recoup whatever money they spend. But we're not trying to make a profit off of it. And then since they don't have to come up with millions of dollars for that land, they could put in the buildings, the housing, and run it at a reduced rate, maybe a significantly reduced rate, and we all benefit. long-term, the town will get its whatever money back anyway.
Yeah.
Because we'll still get property taxes on that, even though we don't collect money for the leased land.
That's true.
That's my thoughts.
I think that's a great.
I'm gonna do a
roadmap.
drive-by tomorrow.
I think you should.
Yeah. And, yeah, we can, put this on the agenda for the next meeting to vote,
To vote on
chasing this.
pursuing it.
Yeah, if you're gonna chase this piece of land and then go from there.
So that's what I've been doing. The grant opportunities, I spoke with the person who works for, I'm getting tired now, works for Small Business Administration, and she does grants, but she doesn't specifically do this type of grants. She was willing to have me call her back and lean on her in the future.
Okay.
Just like I asked them if I could use them as a resource. Same thing.
Okay.
Good to have contacts.
And that's where we are.
I went to, there was something at the Housing Authority, this is probably like 4 or 5 months ago, and I'm a realtor, I'm a Rock Hill
Yes.
long-term resident, and I'm inquisitive, so I'm like, I'm gonna go to it.
Yeah.
So she was standing right in front of me, and they had like, Carrie was there, and, I can't think of our senator's name off the top of my hand. There were some dignitaries there, in other words, and I'm walking around like I was just a little person, I wasn't part of this crowd, and like, no one said it wasn't closed to the public, so
Yeah.
she's like, just stay. So it was really interesting hearing people talk about a lot of this stuff that we're talking about. So hearing her again tonight was really great, because I heard back then like how challenging it is for what they do.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's good that it's getting more publicity, and, I was very impressed by, all the people, I don't know who they were, I never
Sure.
most people, but that there was a lot of passion in that room for,
Yeah.
making things better.
And who knows, there's so much buzz around affordable housing.
Yes.
Nationally.
Yes.
There might be something more concrete that happens.
Yeah.
And hopefully, if we make some progress here, we could get in line a lot quicker than
Yeah.
some of the other towns would, so.
Yeah.
Everything is very, very hard to do until you do it.
Yeah.
So,
Um,
discussions of this ordinance on next week. So, no, F I'm not really sure about. Is this about the $500?
The $500, yes, first-time homeowners, my understanding is we sent a letter, or authorized Kim to send a letter to the council saying we recommended that. Did we not do that? July 17th. Well, I'm not gonna read all this now. Why don't I leave it this way? I recommend we put the discussion on F off until the next meeting when Kim is here and we can see if we already did it. We'll have to vote on that. I propose that.
Second it. All in
Yep,
Favor?
yep.
Okay. Thank you.
6, Affordable Housing Forum. So I'll touch base with Kim if she was able to secure the community room
Okay.
and the date thereof, so that we can start planning on the Affordable Housing Unit Forum. So I can do that.
Dwelling units and planning and zoning commission activity would kind of be tied in with Kim being here.
Yes, so motion to put on 6B and 6C.
Yes.
Yeah, I second.
All agree? All in favor?
Any other suggestions for agenda items? one point of personal, because I'm registrar of voters. This green list that I've given you means that I'm gonna be really busy between now and well into November. So I'll apologize in advance if I don't make the next meeting or two. I'll try to be here.
Totally understand.
Can I ask you a question afterward?
Sure.
I don't wanna come to the meeting, but it has to do with this stuff.
Okay.
Any suggestions for agenda items for the next meeting?
I'm gonna ask Kim to send this out to everyone,
Yes.
and then we can talk about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's called the Partnership for Strong Communities, Tools for Affordable Housing Development Resources. And like I said, there are a lot of links in here. I haven't done a look at the links, but there's a lot here.
No, that would be good stuff for people to look up, research.
Yeah,
figure out
yeah.
stuff. That's what it is.
That has to be changed,
Yeah.
or I won't approve it next time.
So yeah, and I have, we're gonna put to vote, Tom suggested, property 8526. Also check with her on the letter that she needs to send for the tax abatement. If not, then we can put it on the agenda for the
Put it
next
on the
meeting.
agenda.
And then I'll follow up with her on the availability for the community room for the Affordable Housing Forum.
Terrific.
Any suggestion into like when we should do it, timing wise?
Who is going to be presenting there?
So that's something we need to talk about. I'm sure Chafa is interested to come present.
I haven't talked to them about it, and I don't know whether it was Alan or Kim who talked to them about.
Yes, I was
presenting.
there when they made the presentation to the town council.
Okay,
So, I forgot the name, but I have it, like, they said that they would be willing to come and
Terrific.
present, for this one, so. The only, I think, thing is we would need time to advertise it, so people are aware that we're doing something like this and, they can come take advantage. Obviously, the big question mark is, how do you find affordable housing, but
right.
if they fall under some of the criteria, right, they benefit from some of the programs that CHFA has to offer.
And ideally, we'll be looking at using the community center for that presentation. And you can see that I'm occupying a lot of the community center for the next month.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
So,
Plus,
this is
I
just
don't
a
even
heads
know
up
if we
with
have enough time before
Yeah.
November 5th, right? So let me follow up with her, and maybe between November and, I don't know, Thanksgiving might be a good time, right before the holiday again. But
Yeah.
let's look at availability before we. Okay.
Terrific.
All right, motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, and second?
Second.
Okay.
All
All in
in
favor?